On this special edition of FieldLink, we come to you from Denver, Colorado in the 2025 Commodity Classic, where this year's convention had a grower attendance of 5,170 producers. We'll catch up with Helena customer and soybean yield champion Curtis Hobbs from Elkmont, Alabama, to gain further insight on what it took for him to reach his record yields this year. Plus, Helena Government Affairs Director Sean McCarty joins us for a policy update on a range of topics from tariffs to the Farm Bill. National FFA officers Jack Lingenfelter from Douglas, Georgia, and Caroline Groth from Lexington, Kentucky, join us to discuss how the supervised agriculture experience programs are helping today's youth prepare for the agriculture workforce. Finally, Jody Lawrence joins us from Denver to discuss everything from recent comments made by the newly elected Secretary of Agriculture Rollins on ERP payments. He'll also hit oil prices, tariffs, and the recent predicted acreage report from the USDA. Stay tuned for this special episode of FieldLink. And welcome back to the FieldLink Podcast. We're coming from here in Denver, Colorado, in the Commodity Classic. And sitting with me today is a champion. And his name's Curtis Hobbs, and from Hobbs Farms in Elkhart, Alabama. Curtis, tell us a little bit about what you won here recently here and why you're here at the Commodity Classic.
I won nationally for soybeans and Asgrow. I placed 98 bushels to the acre.
98 bushels
and
an
I
acre.
won Alabama nationally. So
Alabama nationally. Awesome. That's quite an honor. And last year was a little bit of a challenging year for the most part.
Yes, we burn up. We were hot and dry.
Tell us about the season. Let's step back and talk about how the crop started and how you made some decisions along that journey and what were some of the factors that impacted your crop.
For some reason or not, last year I had 100 bushel soybeans in the yield contest, and they were on dry land.
Okay.
Well, this year I was going to try to up that, and I put them under a pivot. I don't know what told me to put it under a pivot, but I did. And to plant soybeans wet, we barely got them in the ground when we wanted to. So wet, our roots didn't have to go deep to find any moisture. And it was going, we put everything to them. I had them on 30-inch rows.
Okay.
At 120 population, 120,000.
Oh, wow.
So, and I was going to go through and I was going to wide drop them. So I wide dropped them, side dressed them, did everything. And they were going good. And I had the pivot running, and our guy that does our soil, our probes, we have probes and stuff, tells us when to water and everything.
Okay.
So we were watering, and the water shut off about, I don't know, we had a good watering up until about the middle of June. And after that, everything shut off.
Just shut down.
Our corn burned up. I mean, we were running pivots. Our pivots couldn't keep up. By the time our pivots got to one side, they were burned up, the other side of the field. But my soybeans, they were fine, and we kept watering and watering. I never turned my pivot off from July to the end of July.
Is that right?
1st July to the end of July.
All July, you kept the water pumping.
Yep, and
wow.
I put it on 3/10 so it could make it a full circle.
Okay.
Within, I guess, 12 hours, it would do a full circle there and back.
Awesome.
So, and I never cut it off. And then I would cut it off because we had cotton on the other side, so we run one pump off 2 pivots.
Okay.
So our cotton was struggling, so I had to turn it off for like a week so I could water the cotton and everything. Got it watered, and I'd go straight back soybeans, watering. And I was going to, and I lost 5 bushels for sure. And I was going to spray paraquat, but I didn't want to change my combine. We were harvesting corn and everything, and to harvest beans. We have 2 combines, but we were trying to get the corn crop out. It was horrible. We were just trying to get it finished. Well, I was going to switch the combine back out, but I didn't. I just decided we were going to finish the corn, and then I'd go straight into my soybeans. Well, I shouldn't have. I should have stopped. I should have paraquatted my soybeans, burned them down so they'd be ready to harvest. Well, I didn't. And about 2 weeks, I was fixing to go in to harvest them, and we got a big rain. And that's what cut it. And after they were ready, I cut them they were 12.7, something like that.
12.7, okay.
Yep. And they were 98 bushels, and I think I could have beat the 100. I do, if I would have paraquat burned them down.
Man. Well, hey, good lesson, though, right?
Yep, that's a good lesson. And I paraquatted my ones last year on the 100 bushel ones. And on the top of that soybean crop, when I did the 100 bushels, I have never seen the top of a soybean plant so loaded in my life.
Really?
They were falling over, actually. And I planted those on 15-inch rows at 155.
At 155,000.
And I planted them. We have a 24-row, 30-inch row planter.
Okay.
And that's what we plant corn and soybeans with. And our cotton. We plant skip row cotton with it. Well, it was planting corn, and I was going to plant 30-inch row soybeans. So planted them. Well, and I planted them with our little replant planter. My dad built an 8-row replant planter, and he passed away 3 years ago. But he built that planter. Well, so I was like, I'll just plant it with that. So I went and put my soybean plates in, and it's a chain driven on population. I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
I'm all technology on these new planters.
Back to the old school, huh?
Yes, back to the old school. So I planted, and I dug for seed and dug, and I could not find many.
Really?
But now when I was putting I filled up 5-gallon buckets, and my granddad can walk out to a field, measure how many kernels is on the corn cob, and tell you exactly. He can get within 10 bushels of what that farm will make. He is a moving calculator. And I've had some of the best teachers, Chad Henderson, all them. They all helped me. But I went back, and I didn't think I had enough seed. So I split with that same planter. I split it to 15-inch rows with my GPS.
Okay.
So I went in first week, I planted 30-inch row soybeans. Well, 3 days later, I was just questioning myself, am I going to have enough beans that come up? Well, so I just got another box of seed, and I went back and split it.
Split that row.
Split it with a 30-inch row, 8-row planter.
Okay.
And it's 20 acres. So that's pretty good, and it's a slow planter, so I was planting in 3.5 to 4.
Okay.
Slow. It was a slow go, but I got it. Went back and split them, and I will be dang if every seed that I put in the ground did not come up. They were so thick. I have never seen anything like it.
Now, did you use any seed treatments? Tell us a little bit about that.
What were they? They were Asgrow 47 XF2s.
Okay.
So they're treated. I don't know exactly with what. I'm not that in depth with it.
Yeah.
But they had everything, and we put some potash down. That is the biggest key on soybeans. We put 2 ton of litter first, and then we go back with potash, and we plant them.
Okay.
And that potash, to me, you can grow good soybeans, late beans. If you put potash, that will definitely improve your yield. So we put potash, and they all came up, and I thought I was going to have to go through the field with a hoe and just thin them out, but I didn't. And we winged it, and I talked to Chad Henderson and a few other people, and we put some bows or whatever and threw the sprayer on top.
Okay.
So I couldn't wide drop because they were 15s. So we sprayed a bunch. I fungicided them 3 times, I know that. I never sprayed nitrate over the top.
Okay.
I never did that. We never side dressed them, nothing. So I had the 2 ton litter, and on our corn ground we put 4 ton of litter out. But now if I put 4 ton on soybeans, I would think it'd make my stalk a whole lot bigger. I don't care anything about the size of the stalk.
Yep.
I want fruit on the stalk.
Yep. You want beans.
Yep, I do. And the bigger the bean, the more yield you have. Not about how many beans, the bigger the bean. That's
right.
what you want. You want
fill them up.
Yes, you want them fill completely up. And I had a few. I tried to find a 5-pod, but I never found one. I found plenty of 4s. I mean, loaded with 4s.
No, that's awesome. And especially in a challenging year where it was pretty hot and dry.
Yes.
During that July
Yep.
time frame there, especially in Alabama.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit more about your farming operation, Curtis. Tell us about the size scope. What do you guys raise?
Okay, so we're about 45 to 5,000 acres. We're small, but we farm corn, soybeans, wheat, and cotton. And with my granddad, for our community, we grow a few pumpkins and some sweet corn for everybody. But corn, soybeans, and cotton are our main. And normally we don't plant any early beans. We all plant late beans behind, so we can double crop, make more money off the wheat after the wheat.
Harvest the wheat and then go
But
right
now
in
I
there.
do a few test plots of early beans just for yield and everything, see what I can do. But personally, I think there's more money in corn and cotton.
Sure.
Just acre-wise, but now you can double crop beans and make just as much. So that's what we normally do.
Oh, awesome. Hey, who's your sales rep again at Helena?
Josh Lambert.
Josh Lambert, great. That's awesome. Well, that's it's good to learn about how you hit that amazing yield this year
sir.
in a tough year. Are you enjoying your time here in Denver at the Commodity Classic?
Yes, sir. I am. We usually go to the farm show in Louisville.
Oh, right.
I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah, in Louisville.
This is much better to me. You can actually walk around and enjoy the show. Louisville is very, very crowded.
Yeah, it's a different environment too.
Yes, sir.
The one thing that I've learned about the Commodity Classic, I've been here 20, 25 years, is the growers that come here tend to want to challenge each other and learn from each other.
They want to be here, and they are here for a reason.
Right.
And not everybody can just walk in this place and enjoy the show like Louisville. People that are here have the passes on and everything and or want to be here to learn. So.
Right. Well, Curtis, listen, congratulations on your win this year, and thanks for all of your business, and good luck in 25.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you're going to give it another run, right?
I am. I hope we get rain when we need it.
Yeah,
I hope it's a whole lot better every year, but Lord willing.
There you go. Curtis Hobbs from Hobbs Farms in Elkmont, Alabama. Congratulations, and thanks for joining us here on the FieldLink Podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Here in Denver, Colorado, is Sean McCarty. Sean is our Director of Government Affairs. Sean lives in Memphis, but he gets to spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. And if you haven't paid attention, there's a whole lot going on in Washington right now, right, Sean?
Just a little bit.
You've got job security right now is the way I like to look at that. So we're going to talk a little bit about some things that are happening in D.C. that are really important to growers that are taking place today. Sean, let's talk about, it's a fast pace in D.C. And D.C.'s not used to a fast pace, are they?
It's hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. It's a big cultural shift but for certain, and there's a lot of changes going on. And today we're going to talk specifically about the Farm Bill and the Endangered Species Act, Sean. These are two things that are really important to producers that are here in Denver at the Commodity Classic and really across the whole nation. So let's talk about what's going on with the Farm Bill right now.
Well, we're in our second extension, right? The 2018 Farm Bill is still in place. We've extended it twice. So right now into this current extension, we've got until September 30th of this year. We've got a couple other things going on, from budget reconciliation, which is kind of taking a lot of the time, a bunch of Senate confirmations of appointees. And so we understand that we're not going to have a Farm Bill passed in the next few months. Leadership has come out and said really about a 6-month timeline. Okay. We'd like to have this done by the summer, by July, and give some assurity to farmers out there that we're going to get some updates in there. We're going to update some of our priorities, make some updates to our reference prices that are 7 years old at this point.
Wow, going on 7 years. And you think it's about 6 months out yet, Sean?
I think if we're being optimistic, I think that House and Senate leadership would like to get that done. You know, we passed language out of the House, out of the Ag Committee last year, and it just didn't take hold with the Senate. There was different leadership. Debbie Stabenow, the senator, was the chair of the Senate Ag Committee then, and she just didn't agree from some of the key priorities in her Farm Bill language with House Ag Chairman G.T. Thompson's version, and so we got nowhere. Now we have Senator John Bozeman in a leadership role within the Senate Ag Committee, and so he had some rebuttal language to Senator Stabenow's language last year that was more in line with GT's. So we know we're not starting from scratch. We've already got the language out there. Maybe a few tweaks I think that Republicans would like to make now that they control both the White House, and Senate. And so I think they're optimistic they can get it out of the House. They have a majority there. Once it gets to the Senate, you're still going to need at least 7 Senate Democrats to vote for it. You need 60, assuming all Republicans vote for it. But I think there's some optimism that, by the summer, we get a Farm Bill passed.
Yeah. Well, that'll be great news for growers out there. We'll at least know where we stand in terms of the Farm Bill and how it's going to certainly impact us. Hey, one of the biggest things that's kind of on the forefront of a lot of folks right now is the ESA, Endangered Species Act. This is something that's been around for a long time, Sean. Give us the background on ESA.
Yeah, so in 1972, 73, we passed the Endangered Species Act right around the same time the Environmental Protection Agency was created. Prior to that, FFRA, how we regulate all of our pesticides, was run by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And so we shifted it over to the EPA, and one of the sections within the Endangered Species Act basically laid out how we go through the consultation process to make sure that any pesticide that is registered doesn't jeopardize a species. And there's a unique balance there. The Environmental Protection Agency is there to protect the environment. Pesticides are there to kill a pest, whether that's a disease, a bug, a weed, for producers, for human health protection. And so that there's a really delicate balance of how we judge that. And over time, there were disagreements on how we modeled out the risk. The National Marine Fisheries and the Fish and Wildlife Services maybe viewed how risky something was to a species differently than the EPA did. And we had budget cuts and staffing shortages. And so EPA got behind on some of that consultation. And eventually, a lot of those consultations didn't happen.
Right.
And a number of groups that maybe didn't really believe that those pesticides were the best things in the world sought litigation. And so for years and years, litigation mounted. And we saw products disappear. We saw them get vacated, canceled, back and forth, became a bit of a political football. And so in 2023, we had a settlement between all the groups. Hey, EPA, you're going to create a work plan for how to adjust the consultation process and the registration process so that we ensure that we're doing everything we can so that there's no jeopardy to environmental habitat, to species. And EPA went to work, and they created a work plan. And in 2024, they finalized the herbicide strategy, which was the very first piece of that work plan. The insecticide strategy was proposed but not finalized. Rodenticide strategy has been finalized, but it has a different take on it. The fungicide we haven't seen yet. But today, we are operating under a fully functional herbicide strategy, which impacts every herbicide that is registered moving forward with the EPA or has undergone its 15-year regulatory review period. And so there's a host of steps and procedures that you now need to go through if you're applying one of those herbicides that has gone through that process. And it's followed the label. The label is the law, but there's going to be some other steps that we need to go through that take you off of the label.
So Sean, let's talk about steps that they have to take as a producer. These new rules, it's a new game.
It is, right? So you're going to look at your label and you're going to potentially look at how many erosion and runoff mitigation points do I need to attain, right? It could be 3, it could be 6 points, it could be 9 points. And so you look at that label and say, okay, now I need to go off to the EPA's runoff and erosion mitigation website and look at the chart. And they've got an erosion runoff mitigation page, and it lays out all these different point values for a host of things. Now, you may be in a part of the country that by default you are rewarded a certain number of points. Much of the West, because of their topography, because of the climate, because of the rainfall issues, might get 2 points just to start, maybe 3 points just to start. There's tile drainage. There's the people that you consult if you keep your records, if reduced rate usage. All these different things give you 2 points, 3 points, 4 points. In many instances, getting to 6 points or 9 points won't be that hard, but you're going to want to assure that every field that you're applying that particular product on, you can go back and point to how I got to that point.
Right. And it's going to take some planning, right, Sean?
It is. You're going to have to do that field by field if that product is one of those products that has gone through the new process and has those points there. You're also going to have to pay attention to the drift mitigation. They're going to have updated drift mitigation labels. And so a number of steps with regard to maybe changing your nozzles. Helena has a world of top-class adjuvants. There's areas where use of a particular adjuvant can reduce your buffer by 15 to 20%. In some cases, we've got one product that is out there now that does require you to hit this new procedure. And if you're applying by ground, the use of an adjuvant takes your buffer out altogether. So you're going to have to go through that. There's another website within EPA, their Bulletins Live 2 website, that you're going to have to go in and understand. You're going to type in your EPA registration number for that product, and you have to identify within the United States map, are you in a mapped zone area that may require additional restrictions, right? Maybe that's rate usage. Maybe that's you can't use it between September and May. There could be a host of additional restrictions.
Geographically, right?
And those maps can be updated within 6 months. So as long as you're applying that product within 6 months of visiting that website and looking at that map, you're good. But it's a lot more planning that in the off season, thinking about what you're going to apply, you're going to need to do a little bit more planning.
So Sean, record keeping is going to be a big key to this.
It is. And while not mandated, you're going to get a point for that. If you keep your records, you'll actually get a point for keeping your records. And I would say it's in your best interest. What's enforcement going to look like? Who knows?
Hard to tell.
With states battling budget crises and the federal government looking at cuts to that, I don't know exactly what enforcement looks like, but should an incident arise or should you have an audit or an inspection come out there and they're going to say, okay, can you show me what you applied on this field? And if it's one of those products, okay, well, how did you How did you determine the amount of points that were required to apply here? You're going to want to have that in your record books. And again, if you're getting a point for it, it probably makes sense to keep that record.
And right now, Sean, there's really today, and that could change tomorrow, but today we have one product on the market that really is impacted from ESA.
Correct. Liberty Ultra has gone through that new process. There are a number of products that are up for their 15-year regulatory review period. And when they get through it, they will have that new process in place. Now, they may not have any points. They could have 3. They could have 6. They could have. We just don't know. Also, again, any product that's up for a new registration, novel chemistry, stuff that is in the pipeline, just awaiting that final determination, if it gets registered in 2025, it's going to have that new label.
Definitely. One of the things to talk to your Helena representative about is a new product called Cohort, and it really fits that need for that product of Liberty Ultra.
Correct. I think adjuvants are going to play a huge role here. If you look at the ability to keep on-target application and avoid off-target application, if it can get you additional reductions in your buffer. Now, some areas, if it's up against a bunch of other fields, you may not need that buffer, but ag's changing. We've got a lot of areas where it used to be all ag land, and urban encroachment and development have forced farm fields into new practices that they didn't have to subscribe to. And so adjuvants are probably going to be more beneficial than ever before, just to make sure that we're keeping things on target.
Well, Sean, thanks for that insight. Appreciate it. And there's a lot happening in this area of Endangered Species Act. And I encourage you to, if you're not already listening, become a listener on the FieldLink Podcast. We bring Sean back quite often for these legislative updates. It's very important for us at Helena to keep you as producers informed with that information. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Helena booth as we get ready for the FieldLink Podcast here. And we have some special guests today joining us here at our FieldLink Podcast studio, mobile studio, that is, here at the Commodity Classic in Denver, Colorado. We're excited to have 2 special guests with us here today from the National FFA Association. We have 2 national officers joining us originally from the state of Kentucky as well as the state of Georgia. Joining me on the FieldLink Podcast studio is Carolyn Groth. Carolyn is the Eastern Regional Vice President from Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excited to have you here on the show today. In addition, we have Jack Lingenfelter, is that right? Lingenfelter, help me, Jack.
You got it.
All right, I'm working on that.
You got it.
Jack's originally from around the Douglas, Georgia area, and he serves as the Southeast Regional Vice President. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Southern Region Vice President.
All right, and Jack, help us out. You're going to the University of Georgia,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir. Go Dogs.
You're one of those dogs now, and you're majoring in agribusiness.
Agribusiness, yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. And Caroline, you're attending the University of Kentucky, majoring in agriculture, economics, and agriculture education, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you have been doing as national officers. You were elected last November in Indianapolis. You've had quite a journey thus far.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it, Caroline.
It's been a wonderful journey. The year kicks off with lots of training, and our team likes to describe the training as you're drinking out of a fire hydrant, but it's in like the midst of summer. So it's very refreshing. We're learning a lot, and our CEO, Mr. Stump, right at the beginning of our training, he told us that this year our minds will expand so much and they'll never go back just because we'll learn so much. And that's so true. I know Jack and I can attest to that we've just had so many amazing learning experiences. After our training, we kicked off travel season with getting to go to Japan.
Wow.
Visit with FFJ, Future Farmers of Japan, and kind of just learn about the agriculture industry in Japan. Then we had National FFA Week this past week. I was in North Dakota, Jack was in Pennsylvania, and then being here at Commodity Classic kicks off our crazy travel season. After this, I'll head to Phoenix, Alaska, Colorado again, just kind of all over the United States.
So you're really getting an opportunity to see the whole country and different parts of agriculture.
That's exactly right. And what's great about the National FFA organization now is as we approach our 100th year anniversary in 2028, we represent over 1 million members from across the country. And it's great to be here at the Commodity Classic and know that those 1 million students, that's the pipeline of talent workers to go into the agriculture industry, and we get to represent those students for the industry and the companies and businesses here, and then we get to represent those businesses back to our members. And so we can convey the message of, hey, this is what we need, and this is what you need to do to be equipped to go into agriculture and to serve in that way. And so we're just representatives of those students, and so we are so excited to be here.
So over 1 million students and members in FFA today. And
Yes,
a
sir.
part of that is the vocational education portion
That's right.
of FFA. Tell us a little bit about vocational education and how unique that is, and how you take the FFA side and combine those two together.
What's great about ag education in general is that there is a 3-circle model that really encapsulates what ag education is. And so it starts off in the classroom. Students enroll in an ag ed course across the country, and those courses are based on their interest, and they can choose an ag ed course that aligns with their interest. That's one part of the 3-circle model. The next part is a supervised agricultural experience. And so it's the hands-on work-based learning that a student will be able to experience. And that kind of takes them outside of the classroom. And that really is a student's connection to agriculture. So they learn about ag in the classroom. They can take and grow that experience with a supervised agricultural experience. And then the third part of that 3-circle model is the blue jacket that we're wearing today. That's FFA and the National FFA organization, and students can compete. They can put to test the things that they've learned, and they can participate in officer positions like Caroline and I are. And so that's kind of the 3-circle model of ag education.
Well, it's a really neat model, and the model has a history behind it. It's been there for, to your point, almost 100 years, from the days of E.M. Tiffany and that.
Yes,
Remember that?
that's right. The
I can
Creed.
remember that from my old
That's
blue
right.
jacket days. Tell us a little bit about the SAE. That's really an important part of FFA, and everybody predominantly has a program in there. And we talked, Jack, about having that hands-on experience. Tell us, Carolyn, a little bit about your SAE. What did you do to get that hands-on life experience?
Yes, so kind of a crazy story. Growing up, I honestly didn't really know what FFA was, and it was showing sheep that got
Sure.
me involved in the agriculture industry. I met my future ag teachers while showing sheep at the county fair, and they told me that I needed to come to Locust Trace, which was my FFA chapter, join FFA, and through that, that's really where my SAE, Supervised Agriculture
Right.
Experience, started to blossom. So I went from having 3 U's in middle school to then, by my senior year of high school, I had over 50 U's,
Wow.
and that's all thanks to the support of the FFA organization. I received a Supervised Agriculture Experience grant my freshman year, which allowed
wow.
me to expand my sheep operation. But you know, the FFA motto, learning to do, doing to learn, earning to live, living to serve. And these supervised agriculture experiences give students that opportunity to learn by doing, because they're creating these projects that they're going to help them in their future careers. They teach them these hands-on life skills, and every member gets the opportunity to do that through an SAE.
And you know, these projects, their supervised agriculture experiences can be truly diverse. You know, you can take showing sheep, for example, or my SAE, which was in the area of ag communications. I actually hosted a podcast.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll turn it over. Right?
Well, that was my SAE, and so that was my connection to agriculture. That was my ag experience. So being able to interview agriculturalists and farmers and FFA officers and people in the ag industry and be able to convey that message to a larger audience. But as well, you know, an SAE can be in the research area as well. So students who are interested in that science component in agri-science. And then again, because of that 3-circle model, they can take that SAE and they can be awarded for that in FFA. They can receive SAE awards and proficiency awards as well. And so it's all interconnected, and it's all trying to help those students get truly connected to agriculture
Right.
in a very diverse way.
And Jack, like you mentioned, it's that hands-on experience. It's the practical experience that you can kind of continue to build on throughout your career. And I'm guessing some of that's really paying off as you enter into college and now as national officers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, carrying those skills is always a lifetime experience. So let's talk about some of the leadership opportunities that FFA is providing to young men and women today across our nation. 1 million members. My goodness, that's crazy.
Yes, there are countless leadership opportunities, whether you're serving as a committee chair at your local chapter, chapter officer, regional district, state officer, national officers. But what's so cool about the FFA organization is we host so many leadership events, whether it's conferences like the Washington Leadership Conference, where our members get the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. and learn about ag policy and meet with their legislators, or even getting to attend national convention and visit workshops. there are countless leadership opportunities for our members.
And really, what's great about FFA, and one of my favorite parts, is that competitive side of the organization.
Sure.
So we offer so many different events and competitions for students. And there's kind of two types of events and competitions that students can get involved in. There's career development events, which focus on those skills that will help you go into the industry of agriculture. But then there's leadership development events. And so on top of the officer positions, on top of the countless conferences that National FFA and state associations will host, there's also leadership development events like prepared public speaking or extemporaneous public speaking or parliamentary procedure, where students learn how to effectively run a meeting and debate over different topics. And so all of these leadership development events, similar to those conferences, really help students hone in on their leadership skills and prepare them to go be really competent citizens in the world, no matter what field or career they go into. Because of the leadership opportunities that FFA provides, students will truly be equipped with those soft skills to go be successful in whatever career they choose.
Well, and Jack, I appreciate that. You're right. The FFA really does a phenomenal job, and has for 100 years or nearly, of preparing young people from the leadership skill side. The vocational side, as you mentioned, some of the contests that are out there, from welding to agronomy. Goodness sakes, tell our audience a little bit about the width of types of contests that students can build those hands-on skills.
Yeah, I would love to talk about this because my home chapter it's very urban. About 90% of the FFA members in my home chapter do not come from a production ag background. So what's so cool about FFA is there's truly a place and a contest for everybody, whether you're like me and showing sheep and that's my proficiency, or, there's Ag Science Fair where you can be growing herbs in your windowsill and have a science fair project about it, or doing prepared public speaking, or doing welding like you mentioned. There's just such a vastness, and there's a competition for everybody. Whether you like public speaking or it scares you, there's a place for you in FFA.
Right. So guys, tell me how's vocational education, how's FFA helping? These contests are great, they're very competitive. How is the FFA today helping prepare students for the workforce moving forward?
What I love about FFA is that we really care about our partnerships with sponsors and with businesses in the ag industry. And so we were just talking yesterday to NASA, who has a booth set up here at the Commodity Classic, about ways that we can continue to create curriculum for students inside the classroom that's data-driven, that's data-driven agriculture, that's using satellite and remote sensing from satellites and NASA data to help students go be better agriculturalists in the future and be able to continue to feed our world. And so FFA really cares about our partnerships, not only for industries and companies and businesses to sponsor these events for students, but also to help us create curriculum, to help us create and give input on the programs that we are creating for students. And so if we talk to a company like NASA or a company like Helena right now and say, hey, what do you need? What are you looking for in employees? And how can we help cater and craft our program better to meet those needs? So it's all about meeting needs. And we really want these million students and million FFA members to go in and serve and work in agriculture. And the way we do that is by our sponsors and partnerships that we have in the industry.
Absolutely. It's a great training ground, for our future workforce, not just for Helena, but really for the whole industry, isn't it? Yeah. So tell me, this is your first time in Denver. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And first time at the Commodity Classic.
Yes.
So as you've traveled around, what's your thoughts, Jack?
I mean, we were talking yesterday, it is the Disney World for agriculture. And we were talking with our CEO yesterday, and we said we just need to write a coffee table book about all of the advice that we've received at Commodity Classic. And it's been so cool to visit all the different booths and kind of hear the same shared message about people's journey that kind of got them to their career fields. And it all goes back to their purpose and their why and their values. And these companies, these agriculture companies, all really have a lot of shared values, and that's why they have such good retention rates with their employees.
And we were talking to Mr. Kurt Coffey with Case IH, and he shared just about that purpose and value. And in agriculture, you are working with salt of the earth people. And that kind of idea that, hey, this is meaningful, purposeful work. And that is why it is so important to get people who care, but also it's easy to retain those workers because when you're working with salt of the earth people, when you are working in this really meaningful industry, it just means more. And so that idea of purpose and value, and then again, it's been great to walk around and just ask advice.
Yeah.
I remember we were at the Corteva booth yesterday and just asking like, hey, what are you looking for in employees? Like what are one or two different skills that you're looking for that we can try to be like? And one of the ones that we've talked about and heard so much is always staying curious and always learning more and never admitting that you know it all and that you can learn from every single person here. And so that's one thing that's been amazing about our time here at Commodity Classic.
Great. Well, Jack, Caroline, we loved having you here at the Commodity Classic, and especially joining us here on this episode of FieldLink here in the Helena booth at the Commodity Classic in Denver, Colorado. You both have a phenomenal balance of your career here as national officers, because November's coming quick, isn't it?
Yes, too quick.
It's fast. It moves fast. I'm guessing that's the case. But we look forward to seeing you down the journey, down the road at the National Convention coming up in November in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
we'll
for joining us.
See you there.
You bet. Jody, welcome back to FieldLink here at the Commodity Classic here in Denver, Colorado. It's excited to have you joining us here in the booth as we talk markets today.
All right, thank you, Bill. It's great to be at the show. Huge turnout. Every booth is interesting. A lot of equipment, which is always fun for the little kid and everybody to go see. So having a great time, and love Denver at 70 degrees.
It's a beautiful time with great attendance here at the Commodity Classic this year. Jody, lots of breaking news. We have a lot of breaking news these days, don't we, Jody? Never a dull moment. But you can always hear Jody on our FieldLink podcast, dropped every 2 weeks. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the latest news, and it's oil. It's crude prices. We hit a 6-month low. Jody, bring us up to speed on oil.
Well, the prices have been steadily falling since inauguration because it's clear that this administration is going to really support and help the fossil fuel industry and all the drilling, the drill baby drill attitude that everybody has talked about. And that, you look at the tariffs, where we import oil, where we export oil to, you've got a lot of uncertainty and negativity in all the markets right now. But when you talk about economic impact across the board of a slowing world economy from all of this, crude oil is always at the top of that list of things that are used less. So you've got diesel and crude at 6-month lows, and for the farmers out there who are looking at buying their spring needs and even looking out into the summer, I'm not discouraging you from buying enough to get you through the next several months, but certainly topping off your tanks right now, because the momentum of crude and the statement from the administration is they want to see low $60 crude, and it's trading at $68.50 today. So there's still some downside, but certainly picking off hedging some gallons on the break is a good idea.
Not a bad time to take a little bit of a position is what you're saying.
Right.
Might have a little bit more room there if things get aligned with what Washington's talking about, but still some room there. Jody, speaking about Washington, Secretary Rollins was here in Denver at the Commodity Classic yesterday, and she shared lots of sound bites, lots of information around things, specifically around tariffs. What are some things that, from your understanding and from some of your colleagues, what are you learning?
Well, the hard part about the tariffs is been the uncertainty and we're going to push them back to April, then we're going to move them back to March 1st. And today's the 3rd, so tomorrow is now kind of D-Day for, are we going to enact more tariffs on Mexico and Canada? We know that China has already reacted and added a 10% tariff on a lot of things that we are buying from them, and towards the agricultural, which has slowed that down, what they're buying from us. So the uncertainty in the tariffs, the markets are trying to trade it in, but it's the day-to-day changes that they make one decision, and then it's, within a couple of hours, it could potentially be completely reversed. So that's what has really done it. But if the tariffs and the negotiations, if the tariffs get higher and the negotiations go poorly, then U.S. demand is going to suffer, and you can see that in what's happened over
Right.
the last 6 days, because we're at Monday the 3rd today, and prices are down sharply again after last week's
Continue to
kind of
drop, yeah.
avalanche.
Well, and there's a lot of noise around that, tariff area, but there's also some information on ERPs.
Yes, and Secretary Rollins confirmed that yesterday. The disaster relief payments, the $40 an acre and the $25 an acre for beans, they're right about that. That it was written into law before inauguration, March 31st. They have to be mailed out or received by that date. There was a 90-day window that it has to be followed. So we know that in the next 3 or 4 weeks, every farmer is going to get that disaster relief. So it'll be welcome.
So that will happen.
Yeah, it is definitely happening. It's just they waited until the 23rd hour to get the checks out, and that's what made everybody nervous, that somehow with Doge and all of the
noise going
all the
on,
noise, that somehow the ERP payments weren't going to go out.
Yeah.
There were some rumors about that. But
Hopefully
they're
somebody was left to
definitely-
mail it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they're definitely going out. So, yeah, by the end of March, by the time when most of the U.S. is just now getting started with April planning,
Right.
they should have be able to put that in the checking account.
Oh, awesome. Okay, Jody, picking up some numbers on acreage anticipation for 25. What are you learning?
The USDA came out last week at their Ag Outlook Forum, which is always a preliminary guess, because everybody knows if you're making any guess in February, it's all going to be predicated on April-May weather and what changes may happen between now and then. But at 94 million acres of corn and 84 million acres of beans, from their numbers, we took 3 million acres from beans and added it to corn to get to that number. And back to the number we always talk about, that 178,
The magic number,
total.
yeah.
The magic number of what we plant in corn and beans. And we're planting more acres, and that's being confirmed by all of the seed guys and gals that I've talked to here.
Sure.
That they are seeing expansion in the areas that we would have expected, in the Dakotas, in the plains, and then in Texas and in the Delta, because cotton's price is so bad. So
Cotton's down. It'll
Right.
replace some corn and soybean acres.
exactly. So the fear is that all of a sudden we see a 95 or a 96 million acre, that April and May weather is perfect, and like we've seen several years over
Right.
the last 10, that we have a nice warm spring for planting, because if we go up to 96, then we've defeated the whole purpose of that corn, of corn being the economic choice, because the math always on adding 1 million acres of corn or 1 million acres of beans. If you add 1 million acres of corn, that's 180 million bushels when you take trendline yield. Whereas if you cut a bushel an acre off total yield, when you plant 94 of it and harvest 85 of it, you're cutting far less than what happens if you plant an extra million.
Right.
So that's really what we're going to have to find out. There will be a March 31st acreage intention report. That's going to be based on USDA's analytics, a lot of surveys that they send out. But because there's very little participation in that,
in the surveys today.
in the surveys altogether.
How many? Okay, growers out here. How many of you participate in those? See some hands. Yeah, we got a little wiggle. Yeah, no, I see a lot of hands on their lap right now.
Yes, that are not going up.
There's your proof.
And the argument is always, and the USDA booth is just around the corner, so we have to be careful that farmers just don't want to share any more information with the government than they already have to. So, and it's completely understandable from both sides. So that'll be the March 31st. And again, that's just going to be an estimate, and we don't expect it to change very much. It's going to be April, May weather. And then when we get to the June crop report, June 10th, give or take a day, that's going to be the hard number of what actually got planted, because they will go through crop insurance numbers, they will go through FSA numbers, and come up with the total several different directions to get there.
And again, we're talking about anticipated
Right.
planting acres. So, and we recently just got the official acres from last year. Right?
Exactly.
So we're anticipating going into the market with these numbers, which can help make some producers' production decisions for 25.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Jody, for joining us here for this episode recorded live here in the FieldLink Podcast studio here at the Commodity Classic. Thanks for joining us on this special edition of the FieldLink Podcast, brought to you from Denver, Colorado, and the 2025 Commodity Classic.